So I can send you those. I can send you those last year's magazine.
Just that.
Sure, yeah, no, I want to make sure we're enforcing it correctly, but if you want to change it,
I will.
those you just,
I'll write that
do you want to
down.
let them on?
Somebody else posted a couple
Do you want
minutes
them
ago,
on?
town council sponsored by Subway.
And that's kind of what I was like.
Was it?
Sure.
Maybe we should get them to sponsor.
Yeah, I can easily do this. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
Everybody who
your
comes to the
email.
town
Do you
council
wanna
gets
know
a free
what somebody
Subway.
has to do to follow the current policy, or
That would be
was
good.
there something else that you were looking for?
How we go? Would everyone please stand for the pledge of allegiance for May standing for invocation?
Okay,
Pledge allegiance. Dear God, as we gather this evening, we thank you for this wonderful town we live in and the privilege that the five of us have to serve this community. We ask for strength, courage, and wisdom, and we thank you for this beautiful day no matter what the weather is. Thank you. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. Call to order the Tuesday, April 20th meeting of the Mooresville County Council. Gentlemen have had a chance to review the minutes from, let's do it in the order there are. The executive session, I need a motion to either amend or approve the minutes from the executive session.
Motion to approve the minutes from the April 6, 2021 executive session.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Again, gentlemen have had a chance to review the minutes from our regularly scheduled meeting of April 6th. And I need a motion to either amend or approve the minutes as written.
Motion to approve the minutes from our regular session on April 6, 2021.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Not all the mics are on down here. Now it's on.
Is yours on?
Yeah, we're good.
Down this way.
That's right.
Scared them.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Under unfinished business, Farmhouse Market Fair. I don't know who's presenting that or.
So you guys should have a map of the reworked areas, I should say. So instead of shutting down the streets, we request the use of the parking lots. Which is, I think, what you suggested last time. I think that's what you suggested.
Yeah, but you told me you didn't want to do that.
Well, I have to admit that it took a little convincing, but I do see the benefit of not shutting down the streets. I do see the benefit of it. So I think with the amount of vendors that we have, it's actually gonna work out perfectly. So
The parking lot at Citizens Bank and both of theirs, those are private parking lots. Have you talked to them about?
We did.
You did?
Yes.
And they were good with that?
Yes.
Okay, both of them?
Yes, and they actually also allowed them to set up vendors in front of the old library building, the Carnegie building, in the green space there, kind of like they do for Victoria Christmas. They'll put some things in that grass area.
Okay.
So what happened was A couple of us met with the vendors and we had the department heads there. We tried to hash out something that would work. And this is what we came up with. And I think, I briefly heard you say something about it last meeting, but I couldn't hear very well because there was kind of a sidebar conversation going on. But I thought hopefully this would work as well.
And do we still, since you met with, you said a couple of us met, you met?
I met Councilman Cook and the department heads met.
Are we still going to give them or provide the security that we had talked about?
Yes, there'll be police officers stationed in the downtown. I don't know, Chief, did you talk to the business owner at the corner of Main and Indiana?
I have not yet, but I will.
Okay. But there will be two, you said 2 officers in the downtown. The fire chief is aware as well. And Dave Moore was there as well.
Comments or questions? Jeff?
I have proposals, I'm good with it.
Shane, you're good?
Yeah, I think it's got some advantages to it spreads the fair throughout the downtown into all 4 corridors. It leaves the traffic open during the detour for High Street. Kind of spreads people out during COVID. It's outdoors. Gives them quite a bit of space. So I was hopeful this would work. At least give it a good shot and see how it goes. It's very similar to Victorian Christmas, except the streets aren't closed.
And is this just for the first one to see how it goes and then we'll move on with the second 2?
Yeah, we were clear about that with the.
Mm-hmm. We were clear.
Greg?
Good with it.
Justin? Comments? Questions?
No, I'm good. I didn't like that she said you were right, but I kind of threw the other 4 down here
I don't think
under
she,
the bus. But
I don't think she meant I was right.
used to be a church here.
I apologize. I didn't mean to throw
No,
anybody under the
I'm
bus. Seriously, I
merely
really
joking.
didn't.
I'm merely joking.
Okay.
That's just a joke. So, motion?
Is there any questions or concerns from the public with the change of plans is all I would have. Any questions about it?
If you're using the parking lots for the vendors, then where are people gonna park? Is there enough street parking for them and stuff, or what?
Well, you can't see it, but there are some parking lots designated for parking as well. The sort of the one behind Citizens, the main branch, which is a fairly large parking lot. This is going to be on Saturday as well, so the bank won't be open all day. There'll be access to a little parking lot there across from Citizens Bank at Washington, next to the old cemetery.
Okay.
And then there's also parking at BMO Harris, the little drive-through. There's a parking lot there, and then there's also we have a very large parking lot right here on Harrison. That's on this map is designated parking. Now we also thought, you've got your street parking still available too because the streets are open. But we thought we'd kind of leave it up to the vendors as to which parking lots they designate. I don't think they're going to have enough to fill all of them anyway. But basically this map shows vendors in the parking lot here, up on Main Street, where the new parking lot is. They're across from BMO, and then by Tri-County, and then over on East Main, where the parking lot next to near Zydeco's and kind of across from Bud Bloom, that one would be a vendor. So we were trying to make the vendors visible from all aspects, from Maine and Indiana, but also have some designated for parking as well. And then you've also got this area right here too, along the streets right here.
Okay.
So
There is plenty of street parking, isn't there?
Well, it would be, the entire town would be open.
Yeah.
But, you know, this area here holds quite a few, well, just right here. And then they would just be in the same same corridors.
Okay.
So that it's designed to make people walk each corridor of the downtown so that all businesses can participate.
Sounds good. Okay.
How many vendors do you have signed up?
102.
For me?
102.
Look at that.
Need a motion?
Motion to accept, as laid out.
Motion made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
How's it parking?
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, was that A and B?
No.
No? Okay. Downtown vendor fair parking lots?
Well, it wasn't put on the schedule exactly correct. I wasn't specific when I asked her to put us on the schedule for this particular thing.
We're just want to spring something on you. How about that? So, Kim has come to me with the idea of Mooresville being involved in the Main Street America program. And I think you guys are probably familiar with that. I understand back in maybe 2017-ish, Mooresville may have been a part of that as led by Mindy Taylor. It's all very new to me, but I've been researching it and I understand that we need, in order to apply for the Main Street program, we need a resolution from the town council saying that you will, you give us your blessing, that you're in favor of it. So I don't know if something like that has been done in 2017. I'm here asking for information to find out what has already been done, as well as the application process seems to be very detailed. They want to know about tax revenue and all these things. And so then I would also like to know who I could contact as a point person to get that information if this is something we pursue. I think that we have time. I believe applications or intent to apply isn't due until the fall, but as I said, it seems to be very detailed. So really, this is just kind of a, hey, this is something we're looking into. Are you guys, will you give us your blessing to proceed with looking into it? I'm going to get with Mindy Taylor. I know she's the one in 2017, I think, who, I believe the plaques on the buildings downtown came from the Main Street America program. So I want to talk to Mindy and get more details on the program, but I was wondering if anyone knows offhand if there was a town council resolution in 2017?
My guess is there was, but it was probably earlier than that.
Okay.
And I don't know if they've officially disbanded this or not.
I
Do you know?
I served on it, Ryan Taylor served on it, Ryan Goodwin at one point was president, then passed it off to Brian Weiser, who was kind of the current. Every time that it kind of started up, we had 15 people show up the first meeting and 2 the next meeting. So.
And that's what I kind of heard, is there was lack of interest. Of course, I'm very interested.
It's way before. I would say, you need to look into the 2000s.
Oh, that long ago, okay.
Yeah, I would say way back then, it kind of started up and it's been a roller coaster.
I mean, I think essentially for today's purposes, we just want your blessing that we investigate this and proceed with, possibly intent to apply. And then a point person who we can get information from if we need it, as far as taxable revenue, things of that nature.
Can you get us more information for our next meeting where we can discuss it intelligently?
Sure.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Virginia, do you remember any of this?
I kind of remember that we did look into it, but I'm like, it didn't go anywhere.
I also served on some of those committees. They have different committees like design committee and marketing and different things. But I know that Diane Dorkamp at the library had a pretty big role.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the original, like the charter or whatever you want to call it would be. I don't know who's got that, but she would be a good resource to help you research.
I know there's bylaws drafted.
Okay.
I know that there were several things already done.
They have Facebook pages.
Yeah.
And it's my hope that we could just reach out to all of these people and say, what do we already have? You know, I don't want to reinvent the wheel.
Trying to think who did it before Ryan got one. But I honestly, I would have to sit down and think that,
Do any of you know, was Mooresville ever officially part of the Main Street America or Indiana? Yeah, because we're not now. I checked their website and we're certainly not at this point, so.
They used to call it Celebrate Mooresville, didn't they? And then it changed to Main Street.
yeah, because the Celebrate Mooresville kind of, they said that it, after the bicentennial, they wanted to celebrate, but everybody kind of got lost in what they were supposed to do, so they just kind of Main Street, Mooresville, Main Street, you know, so they could focus on the downtown businesses. And, yeah, I would say my stint there wasn't very long. It was about a year. Like I said, it was constantly Mindy Taylor, a business owner, Ryan Goodwin, and myself. So
I'm going to try to schedule a lunch with Mindy and really pick her brain.
yeah, Mindy would be a good person to reach out to. She was kind of, because I think it was formed through the chamber.
Okay.
So
We just want you guys to be aware that this is something that we're looking into.
I think it's
and
absolutely great to do. I just hope you have more success than what several
we'll see how it goes.
decades have.
Yeah.
Okay, and then I'll get more information, Tom, so I'll get the application and things like that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
For the record, ma'am. She asked me, and I apologize, I don't know your name.
My name's Elizabeth Smith.
Sorry.
That's all right. You know my building,
Yes,
Which one is your building?
the one that got the paint taken off.
The old Stovall building? The Stovall building? the
We're
old
not
Stovall.
calling it that anymore.
no, it's the new Smith building. Right?
The new Smith, yeah.
It's just Mooresville, but
Farmers
we
State
go by what
Bank.
things used to.
We're gonna go back to that. Farmer State Bank building.
There you go. It was the first one in the downtown, wasn't it? That's what I was told.
I know it's on the high ground. I've been doing a lot with the library archives and things. So it's like the highest ground in Louisville. And it's not the original building, you know, it got torn down and rebuilt. But there are buildings that are older than mine,
Are there?
a couple. I love the brick.
Me too.
It does look nice.
Thank
Yeah.
you. That's the whole idea of the Main Street program. We can get all the buildings looking lovely.
Yeah, mine too.
Very good one. It's okay.
Say that again?
Did you have anything else?
No, sir. I
Okay.
appreciate it.
No, I
Thank
just-
you very much.
Under new business, Sun Polymer CF1, gentlemen had a chance to review the compliance statement for Sun Polymer. I don't know if Mike Dellinger's here. No. You can see that their investments far exceeded what they thought, but I think they're like everyone else right now who's having trouble filling positions. Other comments or questions on the CF1 for Sun Polymer?
I just have a couple of questions about this in general. These are due typically by May, correct?
15th.
Has that been extended this year? It was last year because of COVID, right? But has it been?
I have not heard that it has been yet.
Okay.
We're still a month out.
Right, I know. I'm just curious if just to be. And then also, is there any kind of communication between us, the town, and people who are getting abatements to remind them or any of that, or is that solely on the companies themselves?
I think in the past, our Economic Development Corporation has always kind of reached out and kind of gigged them a little bit and said, hey, we don't want any embarrassment.
Okay.
I think that would be an excellent question for Mike and
He's not here, yeah.
Leah.
It looks like they've got a new form out too as well. That came out this year, right?
This?
Help me out there.
It says 121 at the top.
sorry, I don't know which one we're looking
He's
at.
looking at State Form 51766, and then it has in parentheses R4.
Oh, no, this is the same form that they use every year for CF1s.
Okay.
As far as I can tell, it looks substantially the same.
Okay. That was all I had. I just had some procedural type questions there.
Comments, questions, or motions?
Motion to approve Resolution 15-2018, finding some polymers in substantial compliance.
Motion been made, do I have a second? Second. Motion made, Taylor, all in favor?
Aye.
That's to be carried. Aye. Cassidy Scott, High Street. Is Cassidy here?
No, I'm here for Cassidy. I'm gonna run to Seamus.
She sent you for this fun-filled evening?
Well, you gotta do what you gotta do. I've got an issue with Concord Drive, which is the alley, the traffic there.
Is that the north-south? Or
It runs north and south. For one, speeders. That's a big issue. Then the other issue is two-way traffic. The road's not wide enough for two cars. So I don't know if there's, maybe we put speed bumps in there, or maybe make it one-way. Because I mean, what we got now is people coming in and they're dropping off to the driveway and all that. So I mean, that's what we suggest or something like that.
you think they're sneaking through there because of the construction, or is this?
I mean, it's been a problem for
I know
years.
she sent something back a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a problem for years for speeders. So, I mean, and obviously, construction enhances it. So,
You know, the question on all of those alleys is one way, but how do you determine which way?
well, I mean, from BMO to the first alley is one way already. Then you cross it, it's two ways. You come off from Main Street there, by being in between BMO and the new parking lot,
Yes.
it's one way.
Is that all the way down to Harrison?
No.
Or just that first?
Just that first
Okay,
stop. Then it goes back to two ways.
okay. What is the procedure for making alleys one direction? Legal counsel?
I'm sorry, I don't know that off the top of my head.
That's okay.
I suspect we'd have to get an engineer involved. Somebody has to make a determination, the safest way to do it. Unless Mr. Moore wants to be part of that. He's part of the street department.
I guess the question would be, how do you determine, you know, like you said, the alley there from BMO Harris goes south. What would that do to the convenience of your house if that was south all the way to High Street? Or would you want it to go north all the way?
Well, I'm not looking for convenience of me. I'm looking for the safety of everybody else. I mean, it's convenience, I can go either way.
Okay.
At this point, and if I come from the north-south, I got, basically there, I got three ways to get to the driveway. If I go the other way, it's only one way, off 42.
Makes sense.
Say again what you want, how to convert an alley to a,
What's the requirements to change alleys to one direction?
With me, she's complained about the safety of children.
Yes, I mean, that's what we got here, because we got, the alley's at most 11 foot wide. Your typical car is 6 foot wide to 6.5 foot wide. So at that point, they cross, and then you got FedEx running, Prime, and all that, Amazon. That might be my wife's problem, but, you know, once they, you know,
You know this is recorded, right?
So when they get in there, you know, then them trucks are 8.6 wide. So now they're off in people's grass, driveways, and, you know, it's more of a safety issue with kids and stuff like that.
Could the street department at least put something that says children at play or something like that?
You can
Alert
probably put
people.
signage up.
What's that?
You can probably put some kind of signage up.
At least until we figure out what, the speed bump idea I worry about were for like snow plowing and things like
Right.
that. They would just,
See if there's anything that we can do temporarily also, as far as, even if it doesn't meet the criteria, just for construction times, because I can understand exactly what he's saying, because where this, people are gonna shoot across there, and then, oh shoot, it's closed, and then they're gonna
Right.
turn down your driveway, I mean, down your alley there.
So temporary to restrict it to one way.
Something that expedited it.
Do your garbage trucks go both ways? Do you have garbage trucks that go up and down these alleys?
Our garbage trucks go down Broad Alley and 42.
So in other words, what he's talking about is, you know, we've got, this is a short alley, north-south, and where he's saying that the service, and it's not ours, it's a private company, so I'm sure they would have to abide by whatever our ordinances are. They don't traverse those alleys. I'm assuming Broad Alley is broader than 11 feet.
Yeah, Broad Alley's wide.
Can two cars pass there
Yes.
easily?
Yeah, Broad Alley's good. Then your next road past that's, I think Jefferson.
Harrison, isn't it? Oh, that way.
Next one, Jefferson, Harrison, which are both wide, so, yeah.
Is there another alley between there and Monroe? I don't think there is.
No, I think there's a driveway that goes completely through, but not an alley.
I'll have to research it.
Does that continue south across the street from you? I know there's an alley somewhere there.
South, no. Concord does not go south.
Okay.
You got it jot over, and one runs south there to McDonald's. I'm not sure what that is, but
Is that this side of yours? East of yours or west of yours? That alley that goes on over there to McDonald's?
it would be east. Then there's one actually west too, on the south side of 42.
Because I know that there's been questions on the alley directly across from Monroe Street and the traffic controls there. Maybe having to, in order to put the traffic control signals there, making it one way. Just because there's not enough storage to be able to turn in and out of there. And that's another thing though, that would keep, and I don't know how often it happens, that would keep eastbound traffic from backing up if someone's trying to turn in that alley, if you just went straight out that way.
Right.
Okay. Maybe an answer by our next meeting.
Yes.
Can you put that on unfinished business for next meeting? Is there any other questions or comments?
do you need a motion to table till the next meeting?
If that's all right, since she's going to have information then.
Yeah, that I'll make sure it gets on there, correct?
Motion to table?
Unless somebody has any questions, I'll make a motion to table.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Shane Dusty. I hate to do that to you, but we'll see you next week. We'll know
All right,
a
thank
little bit
you.
more what we're doing. We have a representative here from Endeavor this evening. Luke? Just a history on this here, these quotes were forwarded to me from our clerk treasurer. These were ideas or requests that were put in from our department heads in a more regularly scheduled evaluation meeting with Endeavor for our phone system. Is that a fair assessment? And I asked Luke to please explain these a little more to the full council.
Yes, so you've got 3 quotes in front of you guys this evening. There's the very front page has kind of the orange header. That is for access points to expand on your wireless network in the fire admin, court, clerk's office, and fire station. It'd be a very similar structure as what is currently at the police department. So it'd be a pretty good upgrade for those 4 locations. And then looking at your second quote, it has quite a few line items under the purchased equipment. And this is for panic buttons to be added at council chambers here, requested by Miss Diana. Also down at the street department. And then a move of a panic button in the clerk's office to a different location. So with that, there's monthly recurring services. There'd be 2 different phone seats added for those 2 new panic buttons. And then the purchased equipment below would be a mixture of both new equipment and labor for those installation of services. And then your third quote in front of you, and I apologize to Diana earlier, I had failed to send this to her in the original batch that I sent. There was a miscommunication on my part with our team. This is for the call box requested by Mr. Dalton to be added. Also a similar setup as what's at the police department when you enter the lobby. You walk into the lobby and there's a call box on the right there that you communicate inside the locked facility. And that would mirror the exact setup there as well. There is a one-time charge for the purchase of the equipment, and then there would also be a monthly service of $24.99 for that additional call path there. Any questions on those 3?
The second one you said down at the street department, is that at the street department or is that at the MVH office?
Mr. Johnson?
Julie's office.
Julie's office.
Julie's office.
Explain it, that's a phone bill for those 3 things.
Yes. 3 separate, unique users or call paths that we'll provide to you. Every user within your network currently has what we refer to as a seat, and those would be individual seats for each of those, dedicated to those. Dennis, is there anything you would like to add?
Pardon me?
Is there anything you'd like to add?
No, these are just some enhancements that's been asked for some time, and when we've been meeting with the groups, their departments had usually some requests that they asked for. We put the quotes together and gave them to Diana. Just up for review.
Matt, what does this gain you as far as the call box at the fire department?
So right now, if we go on a 911 call, there's nobody at our firehouse. So this is actually going to, if someone comes in, since we are classified as a safe place, if a citizen comes in, they hit that button, it automatically goes to our dispatch. That's what it does. They can't call out anywhere, it goes to our dispatch and that's it. I think that was one thing that we got dinged on with Chief Metzger for the ISO rating. Because I know he talked originally about a red phone, and that kind of replaces this for our citizens to call out to our dispatch if they need emergencies or assistance for either police or ambulance or fire.
So is this an actual phone hanging there, or is this just a button you push with a speaker box?
It'll be a button with a speaker box. We had previously tried a phone setup at the police station, and it was not a good setup. That phone was regularly destroyed.
Yeah, it dropped. I know that it falls off the receiver.
Yeah, much more secure in this fashion.
And you've already replaced the one at the police department?
Yes, it is currently has this setup that's before you.
none of what we're doing here today does anything with our overall contract with Endeavor on full phone service. correct?
That is correct. You'll notice the term requirements at the top of the two monthly recurring charges has a 0-month term on those.
Yeah, I see that now. Thank you.
Mhm.
So back to this one.
Yes.
What is this doing? This is for Wi-Fi, did
Yeah,
I read
this-
wrong? Or-
Yeah. Dennis, I'm going to let you speak a little bit more to the wireless network.
There was some concern about the speeds that they were getting from the Wi-Fi access points. The police station was getting the speeds that were expected. And then at the city building, the other location, there's older equipment there. It's kind of at the end of the life, and if it was replaced with the Ubiquity equipment, everybody felt that they would be getting the speeds as the rest of the departments were. And then the whole town would be on the same Ubiquity network as well, with the one common controller.
So Wi-Fi itself is a function of phone service,
No, that is separate.
but I'm a little confused. So I just want to make sure I understand who's providing what service. So internet,
Endeavor.
okay, that's where, okay.
Correct.
And the panic button idea is a panic button for this chamber
For this chamber, yes.
in case there's an emergency here.
Correct. In the event that that panic button were to be pushed, it would, I believe, Mr. Dalton, we have that ringing both with fire and dispatch. Is that correct?
My understanding is going to dispatch and in our office.
I believe it's dispatch and fire that will ring, which mirrors the current setup that you have.
So this combination of requests came from the clerk, treasurer, our fire chief.
Police chief and Mr. Eltroff.
Okay.
These Wi-Fi, those are both for the workers and then also like in here for people that want Wi-Fi service.
That would be as per your design. We can do either.
And the price would be the same?
Correct. That is correct.
I'm going to ask you a tough question.
Absolutely.
Don't take it personally.
Not a bit.
You, and you may not have anything to do with this, but our IT services with another provider.
Sure.
And he has said to me that he's had a little trouble getting information from Endeavor. Do you have any, is there anything when we switched from Endeavor? Is there anything left over from that that you're aware of?
Not to my knowledge. I'm in sales manager. I'm going to refer to Dennis, who primarily is over network operations.
I personally haven't been contacted or to ask for information, passwords, or anything associated with network. Part of our meetings here this last month or so, Steve asked for a network diagram of how all the switches are laid out, and I provided him that.
Okay.
So, but if Steve needs anything, he can certainly reach out and, we'll give what we have. I mean, it's really, it's kind of.
Just to clarify, Mr. Eltroff requested a network map. We provided to him.
That's right, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We're more than happy any information that's needed to provide.
Comments or questions?
I think I've made enough. For me.
Do you see the need or necessity of any of these projects?
What's the complaint about the Wi-Fi, Diana, in the clerk's office? Is it slow?
It's not slow for us. I wasn't aware that, I don't know who came up with it. I think the objective, I think Steve Ellsworth was driving most of this, that he wanted us to kind of be all on the same platform, like same type of service in each building. Because right now, if you come here and you're trying to use your Wi-Fi, sometimes you'll drag it a little bit. But as far as us getting our work done and using the network for getting what we need to get done, there's not a problem that I'm aware of.
How about you, Chief Dalton?
So at our headquarters, we're fine, because we're all hardwired. I know at the firehouse, we have one or two computers that are hardwired, and then the rest of the building, they know that's the Wi-Fi. And I know every now and then, when we're transmitting our reports to the state, it does lock up and freeze just for a little bit, but a few seconds, then it kicks it right back up. I don't know if that's just because we're out a little bit farther or what, and that was kind of the whole looking at trying to get things figured out. And I think that's what they came up with, was our stuff was 13 years old or something like that, so we need to cycle update.
So the equipment's old.
It was basically there when the building was built. With the exception of the one white rider box that was struck by lightning last year, I think it was.
And Chief of Police, you've got the new equipment. This would match yours, correct?
Now, that was integrated whenever they built the building. We really have no issues with all this. Luke's pretty much taken care of most of our issues that we have come up with to him. I think Steve was just helping out the other departments on trying to get some of their equipment upgraded to where it's functioning properly and up to date. Is that correct, Luke?
That is accurate.
Jeff, what do you think? I mean, do you see a need for any of these services? It looks like you left the Sears and Roebuck Christmas wish book out on the counter.
I mean, I think there is a need for some of the services. My question is, our past working relationship with Endeavor is my struggle right now. You know, I think we have some issues when we went back over to Telemagine, and it's just hard for me to get over that, just to be honest. You asked?
I wondered, yeah, and I saw it from being the middleman between VIA and Steve Oshman, and they pretty much answered anything that he asked me to ask them. I don't know. I see it from a different angle, I guess. I'm shorter than you. Shane?
For me on the Wi-Fi, I haven't talked to Steve Ellsworth about this at all.
Okay. And hey, here's the deal. We don't have to do it tonight. I just wanted someone here because it was sent to me, and I thought, let's get this out here. So
generally, I'm for updating technology equipment because a decision like this isn't just for this particular moment. It solves a problem for the future as well, at the end of the future. So generally speaking, even though it may not be causing quite the problem right now, I could see that it could be saving a future problem. And I think that's important when you're talking about continuity of service and things like that. I think for me, I would rather talk to Steve about this before approving it. That's kind of how I'm landing right now, but I'm just one. And I'm talking specifically about the Wi-Fi right now.
okay. About the other two? Would you want to just wait and do them all at one time?
Yeah, I'm over here giving a bunch of deep sighs over some of this stuff, so, you know,
It's a lot to process.
well, I mean, you know, call buttons that get used how many times does this meeting hall gets used? A month, 6 times, 7 times? Maybe I'm being nitpicky, but, you know, I don't know. I would like to ponder on it a little bit.
Can I have a motion to table then?
Motion to table.
I have a motion to table, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion to table made and seconded, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you all for your time.
Someone, do you think we'll have enough time by our next meeting, or do you want to push this to the second meeting in May?
Next meeting for me.
Yeah, for me too. I think I would go with that.
Yes, sir, very tight with the table. ERS. Is Bill here? Hey, there you are.
Good evening. Bill Foote with ERS Wireless in Indianapolis. I was here a couple months ago, back in December, more than a couple months ago, to talk about the service contract for the dispatch equipment. I'll try to make it brief for you, the rundown. The equipment was purchased in 2018, installed in 2019. At that time, the first year was covered under the first year warranty for Motorola, and there was a 5-year service contract signed at that time. Since then, that service contract was your typical legacy service contracts that something breaks, we come out and fix it. Since that time, these systems have moved to such software-based equipment that software updates were not included with that initial service contract. And that's what the new service contract will cover, is updating these software versions to keep dispatch current with the state. So I've talked with Tom. On your first sheet here, it kind of gives you a list of what you have covered today and what's proposed on the first page right there in that graph. And the biggest mistake, even though it's going to be less money to Motorola, the biggest mistake is not getting the software updates, because it gets to a point where once you get so many versions behind, if something breaks, it can't be fixed, it has to be replaced, and then it's costly. So Motorola is really pushing these software update agreements with all the users, and it ends up saving you money in the long run. So the one piece under Motorola's agreement that's not covered is you have radios in the back room that run the system that they talk on. Those are not covered labor-wise by Motorola with this agreement. So that's where the service agreement with ERS provides all your service calls and labor to actually do the repairs to the system if you should have a failure. So then on the last page, where I have the SUA pricing there, it gives you your current maintenance agreements, what would be due in 2021, 22, 23, and 24. And if you stay with that, you don't get the service updates or the software updates. The next section down is the proposal from Motorola, which will give you the essential maintenance with SUA, and that's going to run you through 2026. There's an initial, the first year is so much more because you're already 2 software versions behind that have to be updated. And then after that, there's a considerable drop off and considerable less money than what the current maintenance agreement is.
Have you calculated the overall savings someplace? like apples to apples?
I don't have that written down right here, but if you start with year 2, 2022, with the essential maintenance with SUA, and add that 9,632 plus 5,962, you're looking at roughly $15,000. We're up above under your current maintenance. You're looking at 2,344 without any software updates. So you're saving about $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 a year as you go forward with the maintenance contracts.
So this, on this sheet,
Mhm.
the online services, so the online on-site support, that's billed hourly or what?
That's what this contract would cover right here.
So
The
that,
contract with our company.
so that takes the place of this?
Correct.
So it's this plus this
Correct.
to get what we have?
Even more than you have today, because you have the software updates coming. You're going to save I think it's roughly $5,000 in 2022, $6,000 in 2023, and $7,000 in 2024. And you have more, you're going to save that amount of money and have better service for the center. It'll essentially pay for years 2025 and 2026. And still have some money left over.
The previous contract didn't have software updates in it?
Pardon me?
The previous contract didn't have any?
No, it did not. Their old maintenance contracts was, like a lot of companies, here's the maintenance contract, something breaks, we come out and fix it. Why they missed the software updates years, everything's changed so rapidly in the last 3 or 4 years. Everything in that system is so software based now that it's just a different animal to deal with.
Usually we get the software alerts to update.
Yeah, that's
It's never offered.
no.
Never offered.
And we did ask the question, Tom asked, well, can I just buy the software updates and not have the maintenance? Motorola doesn't offer that, just software updates.
Okay, just so they see it, let's go back to the last page. The Essentials Plus and just the Essential Maintenance. The difference in those two are they provide labor in the second, correct?
Motorola provides labor, yes.
Which
Correct.
may even be you that comes out and does it as a contractor.
If something would break, if you would sign the Essential Plus maintenance with SUA, and you have a service call need, they are going to call us to come out and do it. If you sign that contract with them, they kind of sign a subcontract with us as the primary service provider.
And then we would also add to that, to cover everything, we would add the $1,400, $1,500 down below, the consulates and the mobiles.
That would be added to either or, and then Motorola would have total coverage. The consulates and the mobile radios down there at the bottom are covered underneath our contract.
So what we're buying from you is the difference between the Essential Maintenance and the Essential Plus maintenance and the maintenance on those consulates, and we're buying the plus portion off of you, the higher price, $1,188.
Correct.
And the
Yes.
$315.
Yep.
And what is a consulate?
The consulate is it's like a mobile radio on steroids, and it's for each channel that dispatch wants to monitor at one time, they have to have a consulate in the back room so it shows up on the display out where they sit.
Okay.
So they have 11 channels that they can monitor at one time now, and that's the old setup that they had at the previous dispatch center, and they wanted to carry that over down to here.
And what is the mobile?
The mobiles are used for conventional resources that the street department talks on. The PD has a backup VHF system that they talk on. I don't remember what the other three. Fire department has a VHF system also, and I don't remember what the other two are used for.
And this expires in May?
Technically, the service contract with Motorola expires April 30th. If something doesn't happen between now and April 30th, you're not going to be sitting dead in the water. They will still come out. So, because as far as I know, you only might know, the service contract for 2021 hasn't been paid. You've held off paying that with the possibility of moving to the new service contract.
Chief Julian, Steve Elzeroff, and you support the new recommendation, or the new plan with so it'd be the essential maintenance plan plus their additional maintenance plan.
Yes, and I was hoping Steve would be here, but he had a doctor's appointment. He didn't feel like it was going to be iffy whether he was going to be able to make one out, because he understands what Bill's saying a lot more than what I understand Bill's saying. But from what I understand with Bill, yes, it's a benefit to us.
The thing I want to really point out, and I've told Chief Julian this, Steve knows it, I've tried to relay it to Tom also, and I think Shane, when you and I met the one time, the biggest mistake you can make is staying with what you have, because the software updates are so important to keep current with the state, because you're going to get to a point where it's like your cell phone. If somebody have an iPhone 6 still, it's going to work. But then when it fails, it's a replacement. It can't be fixed. The software can't be updated in it. So,
Do they have to be done in consecutive order?
it's a process. They'll come in and they'll do one. You're at 7.13 right now. They'll take you from 7.13 to 7.14, and then you go from 7.14 to 7.15. It can't all be done at once, but it's done in the same day, but it's two separate processes.
They're consecutive.
Correct. Yes.
Are there any regulations on that? Or
It's all really determined by the state on what they put their system at, the next version that they move to, the next functionality they want, the next improvement, the next security, upgrade that they want done. Whatever the state kind of drives it, it's their system that all the public safety operates off of. The last thing I would want to see is if 2 or 3 years down the road you're so many software versions behind and you have a failure and you can't get from where you are now to the current software, and then it's a rip and replace. And then you're looking at another $400,000 to replace the system.
Well, this system's not that old, right?
Correct.
Was it put in with the new station or after?
It was put in with it.
Right at the same time.
Same time, yeah.
And you said, can you give me an estimate of how much it saves per year after the initial? You said it'll save us
5, 6, and 7 over the next 3 years, 2023, 24, 25, and probably close to 8,000 in 2026.
Okay.
The current maintenance agreement only takes you through 2024, so I don't have numbers for 2025.
So we're adding a couple of years with this.
Correct. Getting better coverage, less money.
Comments? Questions? Yeah?
I think the updates obviously are important, and that's something we need to do as we're learning right now. So I think it's something we need to do, take the chief's recommendation and do that.
And I think Tom asked me, he goes, okay, it's not too often that somebody walks in and says, I'm going to give you better service and charge you less money. This is Motorola's way. What they're hoping is with the constant software updates. This also covers any third-party vendor equipment that's used in the system. If it becomes outdated from that vendor and no longer serviceable, it gets replaced. So they're hoping with the constant updates, you don't have the failures or repair needs that you would need under a typical maintenance contract, where stuff just runs until it breaks. Our service contract is good. That price is good through 2026. There won't be any increases on that. That maintains the same. There's no increment increase every year.
And there's a little bit of a discount for paying.
Yearly, yes. Or semi-annual or quarterly, yeah.
5%.
Correct, for yearly.
Of course, I think that when you did this one here, the copy that you gave us maybe showed the whole balance. But if we pay it, prompt pay, if we pay it on in advance, it's $59.62.20.
Correct, yes, yearly, yep.
Is there two separate contracts here, one with Motorola and one with ERS?
Unless we go with the Motorola Plus.
That's the combined, where they pay for maintenance too.
The Motorola contract for the essential package with SUA is that right there. So it is a separate contract for the 2021 through 2026. So there's two separate contracts, one with us to provide all your labor and service calls and anything related to that. Motorola covers all the equipment and the software upgrades in their piece.
When you said that right there, what are you pointing to?
There's
Because I don't think I have.
I only made 2 copies here, it's 59 pages long.
Oh,
These
okay.
These 2 pages were pulled out of there. It's kind of the meat and potatoes that everybody wants to see.
That's what I'm.
So this is the whole contract with Motorola for the essential service with SUA. These two pages here are pulled out of that because it just kind of highlights the main parts that everybody's interested in. What I got now, and what am I going to, and what am I going to pay.
Has this been reviewed by legal at all?
Not 59 pages. This is what we discussed earlier today, wasn't it?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, there were, he and I had communications back and forth earlier today, and one of the contracts, the ERS one, from a legal perspective was finalized. The Motorola Services one had some recommendations. And your response was you sent it off to whoever your people are, you sent it off to your people.
I sent it to Motorola, is who I sent it to, because they'll be the ones to make any changes in there. I don't foresee any changes that were requested being denied or they just refuse to do. In 5 years, I've never had them say, no, we can't do that. So they're pretty willing to work with.
And pending those are returned, he said those will be returned to us tomorrow.
They should be ready tomorrow.
So what are the options to table it, to approve it pending legal review, or?
Well, legal's reviewed it.
What's that?
Pending their
Changes.
acceptance of our changes.
Because there's no way I can read this in front of, right here, and
Sure.
you can't either, so you're good, but you're not.
And I was, well, thank you, and I was actually joking. He did send me the 59 pages, and we did read it, and there were, Bill, help me out.
You had 7 or 8 additional.
4 or 5, yeah.
3 from the original one with ours that I absolutely know they will have no qualms with adding
Yeah, you
at
already
all.
agreed to those.
Correct, yes.
And then 3 or 4 additional ones that we asked on top of that, like
Right.
confidentiality, right? I mean, they have to recognize it as a municipality, you have an obligation to give up information. So what we asked for was nothing outrageous.
Correct.
Okay, so you're okay with?
I'm okay with the contract pending their acceptance
Your
of the changes.
recommendations.
If they come back and say, no, we must obligate confidentiality, well, you all would be in breach of state law. You can't do that, but I can't
Right.
imagine that Motorola would object to that.
I didn't know she looked at it. I would have had her put something about
What?
negotiating a bigger discount or something.
Well, I realized this afternoon that nobody had seen that document yet, except for maybe Chief Julian and Steve Ellsroth. Because I don't think I ever showed that to you. This is what you were really, this is part of it. It's
Well, and I
the
know in the
crux of it.
past, when we bought the equipment, it was a matter of, here's the contract, and we didn't, the council, I mean, there's a lot of things in there that don't make any sense when we're talking about dispatch centers. So they went back and forth, and I know that, I will say Motorola was extremely friendly when it came to, we had a couple things that we wanted in there as far as the early payoff, and how they would renegotiate the price or the principal if we made larger payments. And they gave us a one-time deal, and that was negotiated back and forth with the attorneys. But I don't think they ever turned us down on anything that we requested.
Yeah, the contract that you have there is just their general contract that they start with the number of government entities that they work through without the United States, let alone Canada and overseas and everywhere. They put out a general contract. If the governing body wants any changes or additions to it, then they just make the changes to it case by case basis. And it would be almost impossible to have a contract that covered everybody's wants and wishes.
And the attorneys couldn't write 100 pages and call it a brief.
I didn't write it, so I'm not billing you for it.
Okay, thanks. You just read it.
I just
real
read
slow. I just know that this, or Chief Julian brought this to our attention last year, and I know it's snuck up on us real quick here.
Every 911 center that we have has moved to some version of the SUA and a maintenance contract, either with Motorola or with us. I mean, it's just something, the nature of their business 24/7, and not having any downtime is just, I mean, it's critical. So you're not the only government body that we've, had these discussions with. And they, I haven't had anybody tell us, no, we're not going to do it. I mean, it's just...
Well, we are a captive audience to Motorola for the updates. And you said we can't just buy the updates.
Correct, yes. I did ask that question. I'm not afraid to ask your questions to them. But that was their answer. They just don't provide an a la carte menu for the software updates.
Comments? Questions?
Yeah, I think you explained it very well. I'm always wanting to save money. I also, it's really hard for me just to not explore central dispatch options either. So, again, you explained it very well, and it's pretty hard for me to say, no to saving money.
Right.
But I'm getting really close to sending at least an email to the county administrator and to Paige saying, what's our financial hit eventually, because we keep spending and spending and spending. My point of view.
Is there a callback on this as far as being able to get out of the contract if we would move dispatch?
We can terminate, it's year by year. So
Correct.
You can terminate.
It is year by year.
Yes,
Mhm.
you can terminate. I think it's within 30 days of the expiration.
Correct, on either party's end.
With both of them, okay. So we're not locked in.
Correct.
The pricing's locked in.
The pricing.
The contract's not locked in.
One of the provisions we also requested be in there was that if appropriation doesn't happen to pay this, then you certainly can't extend your contract. So if in the budget in the fall, it doesn't appear in your, for your next year, you would want to terminate your contract at the end of the year.
This contract's dated November 2020. So, but nothing's changed. This, it says November 2020 at the top.
Correct. Nothing's changed yet. The revisions and the changes that Beth wanted done, those will be added in there. And I can have them put a current date on that at that time.
I need a comment or a motion or whether the table to move forward, whatever you guys want to do.
We're up against the deadline here, aren't we? So, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. I would make a motion to approve the essential services package presented by Motorola, pending the changes that the attorney has sent you. Is that good enough? Okay.
You just the essential though, right?
Yeah, the essential maintenance with SUA.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now, do you want to make a motion or do you want to hold off on the ERS contract?
Well, since we just took out the maintenance component with the other contract, with one we just approved, shouldn't we make sure we have maintenance on the things that aren't covered?
Well, and they'll still do the maintenance, they just won't provide they won't pay for the labor. The labor would be billed hourly. Is that correct?
Correct.
So,
Yes.
I mean, what we're doing now is we're buying the extended warranty that covers labor and what have you off of ERS. That's what the Plus offered us, but he's offering it to us at a lesser rate and a fixed rate to cover all of the labor and those consulates and mobiles. Which,
So if we did not approve this, then we would be paying an hourly rate to Motorola.
we would pay an hourly rate, yes.
Well, more than likely to us.
Yeah.
To us,
Okay.
if he didn't approve the ERS contract. Because if you call Motorola, they're going to call us. Steve knows to call our office if he's got a problem.
Right.
So the nice thing is you can budget it and you don't have to worry about any unforeseen expenses throughout the year. And you know, one of those consulates is right around $7,800 a piece. You got 11 of them. The mobile radios are right around $900 a piece. So there's a lot of money tied up, and the system itself was $417. The whole package, I think, was $417, I believe, back in 2018. So there's a considerable investment in the town's part in your dispatch center.
And Attorney Copeland, you said you have reviewed this one.
The ERS?
Yeah. and you're
Yes.
fine with it. Okay.
Yep. You should have the final draft of that. We only requested the addition of 3 provisions.
Correct.
Okay. Chief, this is the route Steve recommended as well?
As far as the ERS agreement,
Yes.
when I talked to Bill, in the past, we've had very minimal labor costs, correct?
Correct.
So it's like Council Warren said, it's a warranty. It's going to save us any labor whatsoever down the road, but we've had a good track record so far with our labor costs.
This is for 6 years, so do you anticipate as the equipment gets older, it's gonna need more service?
Correct. Yeah.
So this is
I mean, it's
like
just correct.
maybe we don't need it this moment, but again, like I said earlier, it prevents a future problem
Correct.
or saves us in the future.
And then the chief doesn't have about any unforeseen, expenses throughout the year for his center. He's covered from A to Z. The only thing it does not cover, and I've talked to Tom this about, is any kind of act of God, water damage, physical damage, anything outside the normal course of use. They have a small tower out back with antennas on it that bring the radio signal into the building and out. If that would take a lightning strike, the tower, the antennas, the coax coming into the building is not covered under any of this. And you're not going to find anybody that's going to give you any kind of warranty. Exactly, yes. So the biggest threat with your tower is a lightning strike, or God forbid, any kind of storm where it would take it down. So.
Do you want a motion or?
Yep.
Beth, can I make a motion that this is paid annually so we get the discount?
Sure, yes. If that's how, you can make the motion and see if you get a second.
Okay, all right. So I would make the motion to approve the 6-year service agreement dated April 20th, 2021 with ERS Wireless, and to be paid annually to take advantage of the 5% discount.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
We don't want this dated until May 1st, you know that, right?
Do what?
We don't want this dated until May 1st.
Correct. That's what the plan was initially, since we started talking about this, is we would time it, the old maintenance contract would go away April 30th. Everything we sign will start May 1st, and that way everything's lined up together.
You'll follow up with me potentially, you'll follow up with me potentially tomorrow about
Hopefully.
the changes were
Yes.
accepted.
I don't foresee any problems with not having something back to you tomorrow.
Thank
So.
you.
Yep.
I'll forward that to you.
We made provisions, we have a motion on the floor, and for me to sign contract. Okay.
All right. Thank you for your time.
The IT discussion, that was I did ask Diane to put that on there. That was per an email from Steve Oshman. He did call me yesterday morning and asked that we put that off just a little bit. He wanted to gather more information, and that goes back to the server, the email that we received on the server. So that is, I just did not have her take that off. The Board of Zoning Appeals appointment, we did have an applicant that sent in all the required paperwork. I wanted to take a little more time and reach out and talk to her and get a good feel on that. That is an executive appointment. So I'll bring that back at our next meeting. The Police Commission appointment, gentlemen, I forwarded an application, a resume. I don't know if anyone had a chance to reach out. We do have a vacancy for a non-Republican appointment to the Mooresville Metropolitan Police Commission. I think he is here this evening. Chris is here this evening. If there are questions for him, I know that it's tough for Chief Julian to operate the police department, tough enough as it is without us hindering him without a full board. So, are there comments or questions for Chris?
I had a lengthy conversation. I want to make sure I get your last name right. Is it Hobbit? Hobbit. Okay, I knew I'd mess it up. So I had a lengthy conversation with Chris Hobbit and was impressed. If you don't mind, this is a Democratic appointment, correct? Because the statute requires it.
It's a bipartisan board.
Yes.
We already have 2 Republicans on it.
I have one question for you that if you wouldn't mind coming up to the microphone and answering, and this may be considered rude by the political class, but I want this on the record if you don't mind.
Yep.
We talked about my opposition, and then I think mainly our town is very pro-police. Are you for the defund the police movement as a Democrat?
I am not for the defund the police movement.
Okay. That was my main question. I didn't think you were, but I from what I've seen, and you haven't went to Rose-Hulman, you have an impressive resume, and I think you seem to be very fair-minded, and so that was my concern as, I don't know, as a citizen, as a member of this board, so I appreciate you answering that in front of the public. That's all I had for you.
Okay. Anything else?
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
This is a full council appointment. I would need a motion to fill this position with Chris, or to wait for another applicant.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Chris, or Jeff Shane. All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome to the wonderful world of local government and the Mooresville Metropolitan Police Commission. I appreciate you sending in your application. I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. That is, he is a very fine officer, but above that, he is a very fine man. So I know you'll get to know him and appreciate that. Next item on the agenda is department head reports. Not everybody at once.
Ironically, we finished sweeping the streets today.
Salt and sand down now, as we speak.
I hope not. One of the items I have, I don't know if you've seen this, but a couple of months ago, we awarded a contract to mow our cemeteries. That contractor has had trouble hiring employees. So we, as a street department, we mowed it last week. We was able to clean it up a little bit, but I don't think we can continue that. We're stretched pretty thin as it is. It took us a couple of days. The cost was probably in excess of $800. So I think tonight I'm here to see how we want to move forward with mowing the cemetery for the rest of the year.
Have you talked to the second highest bidder?
I have. I reached out to him. He's ready to go if we go that direction.
Did he say how many employees he has, or is he fighting the same problem, or no?
He's a one-man show.
He's a gentleman that had mowed it had the contract for the past 2 years. He gets out there on his little mower and does it himself. If he has trouble with employees, it's all on him. And I think the cemeteries look good. I mean, I know there's been issues. I know Dave's had to, express concerns, and they've always got worked out. He just was the second highest bid. If he'd have been the lowest bid, I would have supported it 100% to give the contract back to him. I don't know where this ends. I mean, it just seems like everyone's suffering from the same problems as far as finding help. But I also know that it seems to be a trend here to bid on the job and then just say, I can't do it and walk away from it. And I don't know how we get away from that. This company here, they're a well-established company. It's not someone that just started. They've done great work in the past, even bid on work in the past for the town of Mooresville, and have always expressed their desire to try to make the town look better. In this case here, we just got caught. I mean, they can't. They're at least telling us they can't do it, rather than us finding out 3 weeks after it's been mowed or something. I think they're still fulfilling their contracts with other government agencies here in town, and those jobs look wonderful. I just wish they would have gave up the school and did ours instead of doing the school. But
I think the name of the business is No One Left Behind.
That's right.
I don't know. Did we send them a contract to be signed?
I did. He actually provided me with the contract. I signed it and sent it back to him.
And do you have a copy of that?
It's on my desk.
Why didn't you ask that question, legal counsel?
Because that's the way you get vendors to not back out of contracts. If I have a signed contract that says you can't back out unless you do X, Y, and Z, you have to fulfill X, Y, and Z, then that's how you get people to do the work.
Well, we tried that once already.
Can't control everybody, but generally that's how that works. So I just didn't know if a contract actually existed in this situation and what it said about termination. Was there a termination clause, or was it?
I think it was a
you can
very
stop-
vague.
You can stop when you want.
It was a very vague contract. I don't think there were a whole lot of details to it. However, I can't recall everything on it.
Right.
It was one
I
page.
understand that.
Do we have to get a rebid, or can we go to the second bidder? And should we table it to the next meeting when we have the contracts, all of the contracts in front of us? I'm sorry, all of the bids in front of us. I don't remember what they were off the top of my head.
Well, as long as you believe, I guess there's a lot of questions in that.
Okay.
No, I don't think you have to necessarily table it. As long as you believe that the next lowest bid is also a responsive bidder, remember you can take into consideration lowest and most responsive, then you could award the bid. But that doesn't mean that the contract has been finalized. You're just granting a bid. And at this point, hopefully the vendor could send us a valid contract, or we could propose one to him or her that could be executed. Does that make sense? Generally with these bids, you don't actually get contracts, proposed contracts with them.
Right.
Council just looks at the bids and decides
I don't
who's the
remember
lowest and
what
most
the bid
responsive.
was, though. I don't remember the
The
dollar.
winning bid was $700.
What's that?
The winning bid was $700. The second bid was $795, and then the third bid was $895.
Correct.
And the second and third are the contractors who had done it, the past contract and the contract before. So we have experience with both contracts.
Does that letter that the previous, does that release us from the contract as far as any claim they would have against us?
I think she's more concerned with, do we have a claim
Right,
against
she
them?
is.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about that.
Okay.
Yes, it doesn't state when. It doesn't say like effective immediately.
Yeah.
They haven't done the job though. They haven't completed the task once yet.
Oh.
I mean, it's not like they said, oh, we'll mow it this first time and now we can't get help. They have not fulfilled any of the obligations.
When was it awarded?
Like
March,
that.
first meeting in March.
Sounds right.
And we've had to mow it how many times?
Just once.
That's not a lot of damages, but that is some damage to the town, the taxpayer dollars. But again, I don't know what the contract looks like.
Well, apparently if they wrote it, I bet it's not in our favor.
Probably.
Probably could have paid someone to write that. How much would that be? Do we want her to look at the contract? Do we want Dave to see if he can find the contract? Do we want Dave to mow it one more time, or do we want to let the contractor next responsive bid? A lot of questions there.
I don't like voting on something I don't have in front of me, so, most of the time, so that's my opinion.
You would like to see the second
I'd
lowest.
like for her to review the contract with, make sure all the angles of that are exhausted, and then go to the second best bidder.
He said that he received the contract from him, signed it, and sent it back to him.
So we are gonna do that.
Well, that's what we're discussing now, as far as, do we want to put you on the spot and see if you can make a snap decision this evening on it? Or do you want him to send that to you?
Depends how long it is. How long is that contract?
It's very short. How about I go to my office, dig that up, and
Yeah, if It's short, it won't take me long.
Do you want to do that and see if you can find the bids also?
Yeah,
Because
that's fine.
if we do table it, which I don't have a problem with doing that, we also need to give the directive to.
Right, to vote one more time, probably.
Well, probably twice as far as, well, I don't know how much snow we're going to get.
Okay.
We're going to move on to another department head. Who would like to go next?
So I really don't have anything to report, but I do have our new hire, Dustin Stanley, if you want to stand up.
No, that's probably not.
Or not Dustin Stanley. I'm sorry. No. Blaine Stanley. It's because I looked at you. But Blaine Stanley, he's one of our new hires. So that's it. Unless you guys have any further questions for me. You sure you don't want to?
Positive.
Okay.
He is much more fit and ready to go than I will probably ever be.
I just had a couple of quick comments about the construction and another request from Ms. Copeland about the legalities of speed bumps. I know the older speed bumps, their width were probably about a foot, so they were pretty pronounced and could cause some severe damage with speed and stuff like that. But I have seen some speed bumps where that width is drawn out to about 4 or 5 feet, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Dave about how that would affect plows and stuff like that, but I have seen that in other municipalities coming up where they have wider speed bumps. I didn't know if you could check to see what we can or can't do about that, and then what would be for like maybe closing off one end of the alley and designating it local traffic only. If that would be an option.
Does this go back to the street
construction
traffic?
issues that we have over on High Street,
Okay.
South Street, Harrison, Washington, all that.
Okay. Yeah, I know, so typically when you're gonna change a traffic pattern, usually the best way to protect a municipality is to have a traffic study done, which is annoying and perhaps expensive.
And probably will be done close to the time that the construction will be done, then we won't need that anymore.
Right, there might be, and as Tom requested, there might be a temporary way to be able to solve this that I need to dig in and see what temporary options there are. But generally, in order, if you're going to manipulate traffic, you need to have a traffic study done, because what happens is when you don't, and an accident happens, and they sue us, because inevitably that's always what happens.
Yeah.
They say it's a failure to maintain, a failure to construct or design. Those are negligence claims that exist out there, and the best way to defend those are, no, I had a traffic study done that actually proves that this was, the
Needed
town
or
made
a
a
necessity.
due diligent decision, and it was needed and necessary.
I
So
just wanted to ensure the gentleman back there, I've been getting numerous complaints. I know town council members have been getting numerous complaints. We're addressing them as we can, but you know how it is. There's a problem here, well, you get that, it's over there too. So that's our problem that we're having. And again, if any of you, I know Shane has sent me a couple of complaints, beginning complaints, please forward them to me. And we're trying to address them as we can. Did anybody have any other questions or anything?
Actually, we could have the state just close off the head of the alley.
I have talked to the construction workers, and they're not having any problems with anybody trying to go around and everything like that, so they've been having fairly decent time of
State's
getting
got
progress.
a certain amount of right of way there, they, you know, they could close off the head of the alley and take care of that problem.
Legal counsel.
I have one item, and this was actually something that the chief had requested. I have a resolution declaring personal property to be surplus. It's a copy for you and Diana. Personal property from the police department. It's a particular firearm that was given to a police officer who is retiring, and the town no longer has a need for this firearm now that this officer is retiring.
Actually, it's the animal control officer that have retired.
So sorry, it's the animal control officer.
So it's Mark. You have to do a resolution every time that a person, a retiring officer, so forth, gets it done.
When I spoke to, and I don't mean to step on your toes, but I talked to Chul Lee, and he said that would be the best way to do it.
Okay.
Anytime you have a retired or something like that, just get it considered surplus and then handle it that way would probably be the easiest and best way to handle it.
We're in the legal and then.
No, Dave, we've been waiting for you.
Right now, Diana did not bring her copy and list of resolutions. Oh, what is that?
Is this the contract?
That's it.
Short and sweet.
Small town.
I like it.
That's a contract.
Do I have to provide a legal opinion on it? Do I need to, really? My brain's gonna explode.
You want to read that?
It doesn't cover everything?
Or anything.
Everything or
What resolution are we ready for?
14.
14.
Motion to approve resolution 14, 2021.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made, second, all in favor? Aye. Let me hope that's it. Legal counsel, do you have anything else?
I do not.
Would you please comment on that, what the best direction for our mowing contract would be?
Your option at this point would be either to accept the next lowest and most responsive bidder or to start the process over. I would recommend that with the next lowest and most responsive bidder, we have a more comprehensive contract signed.
Comments from the board or questions?
Did you find the bid?
I think it was 795.
I didn't have those in my office. Do you have those in? I'll find them. It was $7.95. He had a spring cleanup charge on there, but we've already done that.
Was it the same, this one was a contract for 2021 to 2023? Was it the same for the terms?
They were usually a 2-year contract, yes.
And the price didn't go up? Just trying to think of things to ask.
It is bid at a price for 2 years. 2 years.
My opinion, I think if you're comfortable with second bidder, Dave,
I am. He did a good job the last couple of years.
so you guys don't have to mess with it anymore.
Yeah.
It's a big job.
That'd be great.
What are the other bids? Do we know for sure that it's 795, or are we guessing? Or
I'm positive it's $7.95. I can got to.
That's okay. That's okay.
I'll put much remembrance about what it was, I think.
Yeah.
I just don't remember what the cleanup was. But you've already done that.
We've already done that, yeah.
It's same clear.
Per our approved minutes, the bids came in, and these are on the website. Not one left behind, $7.95 per cutting, Spring cleanup included in one cutting, so that's a $795. Parks outdoor maintenance, $700, and they're $174 cleanup. And then brought us lawn service at $850, and they did not include a cleanup price. So we have $700, which was the winning bid, $795, and $850.
And no one left behind understands that the spring cleanup's already been done, so he's not gonna bill us an additional $795, right?
I didn't have that conversation with him, but I will.
That can also be built into the contract.
Pardon?
That can also be built into the contract.
Motion to approve, no one left behind, the second lowest and most responsive bidder, and also that our legal counsel draft a more comprehensive contract than what Parks presented for the town and the contractor.
Motion been made, do I have a second? Motion made and seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Mine's just because I don't feel comfortable with the way that, I'd rather have it in front of me. Minutes can be wrong. It's nothing against the contractor, I hope they know that.
That's all I have, thank you.
That's okay. Covered all the department heads? Oh, no, yeah.
The park department, we have a couple things coming up. The first concert in the concert series is May 21st, and then May 22nd, the Aquatic Center will open, assuming we have enough employees, because we're struggling to find enough people that are qualified for the different spots. And also, we have a problem that would affect some of the vendors at the first concert series, housekeeping problem with the ordinance that the park is operating on. And I don't know exactly what the solution is, but maybe it's to come back to the next council meeting with a revised ordinance to clean up the problem we have in ours.
When is the, I'm sorry, when is the first event that you're speaking of?
Well, that's it's a concert up at Pioneer Park, and
Is it before their May 4th meeting?
no, it is the 21st of May. So you would have two council meetings before the concert, because I think your second council meeting is the 18th or something like that.
They also
We're
have
going to
the,
do that, reflect the bicentennial park for the May 8th fair that.
Yeah,
is doing.
I believe at this point that park couldn't be cordoned off. It's my understanding.
That would be an issue with some of the alcohol permits.
Yeah.
so I disagree. So can we address
Okay.
the first issue before we jump to the bicentennial?
Sure.
And we can do them both.
Okay.
So the other option is council also has the ability to suspend its traditional rules for approval of an ordinance. It doesn't have to actually do it we could advertise and do both in the May 4th meeting if they would unanimously vote to suspend the rules and read it in both to approve. So I don't know if everybody, is council aware of what we're talking about with the parks
I'm aware, and I
regs?
will be affected.
With the
You-
parks
what-
rules and regulations? So, okay, so what happened, December of 2019 and January of 2020, an ordinance was presented which is what all the department heads have a responsibility to present their rules and regulations to this board for approval. As the Parks Board did, and correctly did, it put all its rules, it had the Parks Board review all of its rules and regulations in an ordinance. That ordinance then needed to come to council for final approval. There was some sort of error and that never happened. So council has never approved this ordinance, which means it's not a valid ordinance because the Parks Board can't make law. So, so that being said, I think an easy way to resolve that is I'd like to take a look at your rules and regs, just to clean them up if you don't mind.
Sure.
But then to put them before you all for May 4th, I can get them to you, he can get them to me, and I can get them to you as soon as possible. So for the next 2 weeks, you can spend your time reading parks rules and regulations, and perhaps to accommodate vendors that are coming in for certain functions, you might consider suspending your rules so that this could be read and voted at one meeting and not 2. So that's the one issue. I think we can solve that, no heartburn.
Okay.
So the other that I'm reading, I don't know that the town actually has, and forgive me, the chief may know and you may know, I don't think that the town has anything that's prohibiting alcohol at the park. I don't think that there's an ordinance on the book that prohibits alcohol.
Other than the previous park ordinance.
That's invalid. So I don't think that there's anything that actually prohibits that from happening. So I believe that that could occur. I still think based on the special events application though, that the vendor needs to complete this and the park board has to review and approve the special events permit. Now that might mean if your parks board is not meeting between now and May.
Yes, they won't
You may need
meet
to-
between then.
You may need to call a special meeting, which is completely permissible to do as long as you can get a quorum of people available before then, and they can complete this application and that be approved.
I'm not sure of the promoter's status. Are they still requesting that park? I don't know, because during the previous discussions with that vendor, it was never brought up, but then the chief called me once he was kind of surprised to find a
Well, when they did
request.
their alcohol permit, the way they were going to do it was the vendor was going to be in a parking space facing the sidewalk, facing the park, and they were going to use the park as an area to be able to consume the alcoholic beverages there. It would be open to everybody except for the 10 feet around the vendor, which would be for 21 and older, was the way it was presented.
So you have a town sidewalk next to a park. And you have town parking spaces, town sidewalk, then the park. Unless the sidewalk itself is part of the park, but I would think that would be under the town's purview.
I don't know that, and again, forgive me if I'm wrong, because I can't find your ordinances online. So I don't know that you have an ordinance that restricts alcohol on public property. Regardless if it's parks property or not, I don't know that you have an ordinance that prohibits it. But that still doesn't mean that they don't need to go through the special event application to ensure that the correct documentation is received from the state. Because if there's a difference between consuming it and selling it. And my intent is they want a food truck there to sell it. And so there's state requirements that they have to satisfy. And that's what they need to present to the park board, because that's why they have to rope off certain areas.
Even though that there is the quarantined area on town property or park property?
I don't know what the square footage requirement is.
You see what I'm saying?
Can you kind of enlighten all of it? I mean, do you guys know what he's talking about?
Not a clue.
They're doing food trucks. They have food trucks, which was part of their original plan. When they came in, they've had food trucks. So what they're going to do is take a few of those and put them in parking spaces, aim the windows towards the sidewalks so that people line up on our sidewalks, not into the street, And they needed electricity, so we've got the light poles and all of that. So they're kind of stuck with Indiana Street because we have dispatch light poles in our downtown. So that's what they were planning on doing.
Is that the part of the question you asked?
I didn't ask anything.
Or-
I just said, hey, I knew nothing until 5 minutes ago.
So it's a food truck that sells alcohol. And what we're trying to do is give them an area to consume.
I think the requirement is an area to rope off you go to Applebee's or something and they have to separate the bar area from people. I think they're separating the food truck from the public.
It's like 5 East Main, around the bar area, it's stationed off for 21 and older, but when you're in the other part of 5 East Main, family members can all gather together and they can consume the alcohol in that area. That's kind of what they want to do at Bicentennial Park. There will be a 10-foot area around the food truck where they can sell the alcohol to those only over 21, but then they can go to the park and stay in that area and consume the alcohol, but be with people of other ages.
But they can't carry it around.
Well, you can walk down the sidewalks of Mooresville with an open container because that is public property.
Well, and all
The-
the concerts last summer.
Yeah.
You know, previous
But-
2 years have had alcohol in the park, so it's kind of like,
But the parks are actually private property.
So does the sidewalk give them enough area?
that's what I thought it was 10 feet.
How wide the side,
But I don't
what's
know.
the
I
width
don't
of the curb to the?
have the,
What's that right away?
Well, you also have the parking spaces there.
right.
I don't know anything about the ABC laws
Right.
from the commission.
I don't have that memorized, but
I don't.
they told us that it's 10 feet,
Who's they?
the vendors.
Well, you've got,
This bird.
between the parking space and the other, you have
It's a pretty wide
your 10
sidewalk.
feet.
We have alcohol wares.
I don't know why they need to rope off the entire park. I don't think
Did,
that's
did they
necessary.
rope off an area there for Ralph and Ava's
No, but they have a facility.
inside? You went
Inside, like when you
inside?
go inside, they have a bar, an actual pole system set up like a fence inside.
Okay,
So that you separate
okay.
children and so forth from the actual bar area. That's kind of the way it is, just like, kind of like Applebee's. Or any place, they make you separated from the rest of the public.
There's actually two kinds of permits that are issued. One is for like an event permit, the other is a festival permit. And there's a difference in what that vendor follows. Because if you get a festival permit, you can not only serve, but you can also sell for take home. So there's two different kinds there.
So have they made the request to you, or did they make the request to you guys, or?
They just told us about it. We said, well, you could put your food trucks in the parking spaces. We discussed that in our meeting.
Now that alcohol part didn't come up in the meeting that I know of, unless it was after I left. Okay, did it?
That came up between me and you, Brent, whenever I got the alcohol minutes.
Yeah, that's the first I knew of it.
But we talked about it in all the meetings.
Okay.
So did you guys go ahead and approve it then? I mean, as far as the
No.
sidewalk, or just told them they could use, I mean,
We said we would present the plan that we approved tonight to the council.
okay, so we didn't
Of course
address
we
the
can't
alcohol.
approve.
We didn't address the alcohol part, we just didn't know about it. Okay. So do you think that that's gonna
Food
come up?
trucks and so forth have been a part of it from the beginning, when they came in before.
Okay, so we don't have to do anything for the alcohol part of it, as far as this board.
Then,
Let me find.
I didn't even see a permit for the parking lots. We have a street closure permit, but we're not closing streets. So, I think their permit comes from the state. The excise, am I wrong? Yeah.
For alcohol, no, you're not wrong. That comes, but I'm relying on this special event application that was sent to me today.
Yeah, that is the park's special event
Yeah, this is-
application, and we have a $250 fee
And this says-
for that unless the park board waives that fee.
Have you charged that to Victorian Christmas in the past? They actually use the stage. These people aren't using
Well,
the stage.
the difference there is that that's actually a town event. And so on the rules and regulations that were proposed in that ordinance, the last sentence in there gives the town or the park board the right to use that park for ones that are, the events that are sanctioned and sponsored. But there hasn't been a Victorian Christmas since then, but that would be the case where there would be no fee because the town would be charging itself.
Well, I was on the Victoria Christmas, it's a very much private entity with private bank accounts. Victoria Christmas is not, the town council doesn't run the event, you just approve the street closures.
Yeah, but the park department is involved in that event, so it's partly ours from that standpoint.
Okay.
I'm reading this regulation again, hoping the council will approve it on May 4th, but I'm reading to see what it says to refresh my recollection. So pending this would be approved by council at the next meeting. The provision that he's speaking of says alcohol is permitted at Bicentennial Park at events approved by Town of Mooresville or Mooresville Park and Recreation Board. So a second item on your agenda following your alleged pending approval of these rules could be the approval for alcohol to be served at or adjacent to Bicentennial Park for this event. Because
And
this
if they
board
have
has
to
the
go all
authority.
10 feet, they can.
That's for, well, see, and that's the state's required.
Yeah,
That's not
but
within.
I mean, if we give them permission, then they can do whatever they need to make it happen, I would assume.
Correct. That doesn't eliminate, they still need to complete an application for a permit. I mean, I don't think that eliminates what this prior provision says. I still think they need a permit, but
From the park?
yes. For the event. I think they need a permit for the event. Maybe not.
I can walk into the park right now and no permit. They're not,
Sure, but
they're
you're
not
holding,
putting
you
vendors
just
in
walk
the
into.
park. They're not putting anything event in the park, are they?
Shane, the park's closed at dark.
You
We can
don't
work
have to
through
go
this.
up there and dance around in the park.
I think maybe this needs to be worked through for the next 2 weeks, but at the very least, these have to be approved by council.
So is the next council meeting isn't before that event?
It is.
Is it?
May 4th,
Okay.
yes.
So that would,
That's why I recommended that they consider suspending their rules to approve these.
Not to prolong this, but is the proper procedure the park passes a resolution and then the council passes an ordinance?
well, the park,
Park's already done its job. Park already approved. No, not necessarily. It's no different than zoning. Think about the plan commission approves a potential ordinance that then comes before council to be certified, to then be adopted. This is no different.
this kind of all happened at a bad time because it was when the council was changing and legal counsel was changing, and that's when it all happened, just during a transition period. And sometimes those things happen, and this is one of them.
Does anyone on the council think I think this is something that can be worked through. Does everyone agree? I mean, we can get through this. It's just, we gotta make sure we get everything done correctly.
Yeah, one of the things that they're gonna have to prove is that they have adequate insurance. I mean, you and I can continue to speak over the next 10 days. Even if council authorizes this, there's still steps that they have to take to prove. They have to name the Mooresville Park District and the town of Mooresville as an additional insured for insurance purposes and on its liquor license. And I assume they want to have alcohol enough that they have already started the process of getting a license with the state.
That went through.
Okay. So that's not an easy, easy process. Okay.
Each food vendor would have to do that, and then and then the event holder would have to do that as well, correct? Or is it just the event holder?
Well,
Name insured is what I'm saying.
Oh, for purposes of insurance?
Yeah. Would each food vendor technically have to do that?
Are they serving alcohol? I'm just reading,
No.
I'm literally just reading the provision on alcohol right now. I don't know what the rules and regs say about serving food, but
you need to go through the Morgan County Board of Health and do that. In our case, for our permit, I think on the vendors there, or because our permit application is like 7 pages long or so on the special event.
this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because you have to outline what kind of police protection, the insurance, the vendors that are there need to provide their proof of insurance, and because otherwise, if something happens, they come back on you. We can work through that.
Yeah. Usually the person throwing the event would carry the insurance, and then I have to think that the individual vendors would have some sort of agreement with the vendor who's throwing the event. But we'll figure it out.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments this evening?
Can I ask one question for legal? Did we get anything with our surplus of trucks to you for tonight, or do we need to do it for the next meeting?
He did not give me anything for surplus of vehicles tonight.
Okay. Can we get that on the next meeting?
Yes.
I'm with you.
Other public comments? Need a motion for approval of payment of claims.
Make a motion, we approve claims in the amount of $667,497.28.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Who says that? Dustin and Greg, all in favor?
Aye.
Town council comments. Discussion of sanctuary town for first and second commandment.
This is,
Yeah, amendment.
Because we need to clarify.
I had to give them the wrong misprint. So I've had a lot of comments from the public that, with the nature of what's going on in Washington DC, people are afraid of an overreaching government, especially in the areas of the first and second constitutional amendments. So free speech, freedom of religion, and the right to bear arms are probably chief among those. And so I didn't know if there was something that we could do to reaffirm our commitment to uphold uphold the Constitution, basically, and the Bill of Rights, whether it would be some type of resolution or declaring Mooresville a sanctuary town for those things. But I think eventually it's going to come down to cities, states, and towns standing up to an overreaching federal government on these issues. So I wanted to bring it up for discussion.
Yeah.
I agree. I mean, I'm obviously pro First and Second Amendment. I don't know what we can do.
The only thing that bothers me, and daggone it, I studied the commandments more than the amendments. But if we look at the sanctuary cities on the second amendment, one of the things, and I think it's kind of I don't know how far reaching it has, but one of the things that it does is it kind of says, okay, we support the right to keep and bear arms for our own protection and to hunt and what have you. And it kind of pushes away from where there's decisions on red flag laws, or where there's decision on modifying guns, bump stocks. That's the biggest thing that comes up. And do I think that a gun that was designed, whether by a Russian designer in 1947 or other companies, needs to shoot more guns, more bullets faster? I don't know. I don't know whether that's a necessity in protecting myself or protecting myself against the federal government as an armed militia. I do know that I don't want to tie Chief Julian's hands if he sees someone or if it is determined that someone has a red flag on them in the event of heaven forbid, a mental illness or domestic violence or something like that, that if we say we do not want our police to enforce anything other than the Second Amendment, we don't want him to enforce red flag laws on people that maybe shouldn't have guns, I think we're doing a disservice to the law-abiding citizens of the town. I don't want to tie his hands any more than what they're already being tied by other outside forces. I do believe that everyone should be able to lawfully own their guns. I truly do. I own guns. I own a shotgun. The Geneva Convention says a shotgun isn't an acceptable tool in the time of warfare because it shoots multiple projectiles at one time. But what I do believe is that a good law enforcement agency like we have here in the town of Mooresville will make good decisions for the citizens of Mooresville. The First Amendment, I think at times we all question what people say, and we have kind of tied up the First Amendment in some of our ordinances and our UDOs. So while I accept and support the Constitution of the United States, I think it is 27 times we've made amendments to it because we think that we can do something better. When we start changing within those amendments, I believe as a whole we try to do it for the protection of the entire populace. That's my thoughts on it.
My thoughts, we sign an oath to uphold the Constitution. It's very simple. And I think there are a lot of people who would be fine taking our rights away. And not all of us pass the UDO, but it is what it is. It's the law. But I have a lot of worries that there's going to be a time where we have an overreaching government coming in here and telling our police department what to do. And I don't support it. I'm looking at it broadly and more simply, I think, from a constitution, because that's what our oath is to Constitution at large. That's all I'll say for the moment.
I resonate with Councilmember Cook and Williams said. Support the entirety of the Constitution. A little iffy on the 16th and definitely not on the 18th, but we got through that. But the entirety of the Constitution. Everybody says you can't have the first without the second and continue on. I think that symbolically is probably the only thing we can really do is say we support the First and Second Amendment. And I know other places have done it. I reached out to Attorney Copeland, who sent me a book longer than Atlas Shrugged on some of this stuff. And she's a little bit more knowledgeable about that. We also have somebody reached out to me, and that would be Chairman Daniel Elliott. He was the chairman of the Republican Party. He's here to perhaps speak or even support the town moving forward with supporting the First and Second Amendment if you would like to hear from him.
Be happy to hear from him.
Tommy, I need to get around, but speaking of guns, I'm gonna go get mine and go to work. I'm gonna be late. I apologize.
So you have two?
Multiple.
And we're not going to say how many. I do want to say first off that I support in principle exactly what has been spoken here today, supporting the entirety of the Constitution, especially giving special emphasis on the First and Second Amendment. As we know, those have been under attack lately, both in the media, in government. These are things that have been issues for a while, and they don't go away. There's a couple quotes I wanted to read, just to share kind of my thoughts on this. First off, James Madison, we know who he is. There are more instances of the abridgment of the freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachment of those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations. In other words, the gradual erosion of our freedoms happens all the time. Now, we can't make a lot of decisions based on, we can't overreach as local government. We can't deal with states' issues. We can't deal with federal issues. Absolutely not. But what you can do is focus on what can you do here. It was mentioned, the UDO and some of the issues there. And I've heard a couple of people say, well, it's just kind of what we have, and we passed this law. I would question if that's even actually valid. If you look at the Supreme Court decision Reed versus the town of Gilbert, local governments don't have the right to create sign ordinances that are specific on the content. So if you're going to create a sign ordinance that says, oh, we're going to allow Joe's Crab Shack or a sign for Bill's yard sale down the road, that's fine. But you also have to allow for the Republican candidates or the Democrat candidates or Libertarian candidates. And I will say, because you guys all know me, I'm a pretty direct person. There has been a question about political signs. There have been people putting other signs up, and those have been allowed, but political signs have been disallowed. And I will tell you that I believe that, aside from where I question the legality of that, but I'll leave attorneys to make the ultimate decision, I would say that that flies in the face of the spirit of the law. Freedom of speech, freedom of political speech is a sacred right. And I think that we have to look at this and say, what can we do to open up that opportunity for all people? I realize that we have traditions in our county and our community, and the party has tried to be very cognizant of that. While we do put signs up, we put them in a few select areas, and we've been very good about taking those down very quickly as soon as elections were over. There have been questions sometimes about, well, wait a minute, so-and-so didn't get his sign up. And I will be the first to say, if I find that out, I'll be the first to fight that everyone should have the right to put their signs up, whether it be a Republican or a Democrat. So I would ask you to consider, as a town board, to not just think about your UDOs in terms of what can we do, but also think about the spirit of the law and the spirit of open access to political speech. I am happy to take any questions. Not that I have any great insights, but I'll be happy to share my thoughts if anybody has any.
Well, one of the questions over UDO has always been, and I know that I've been reprimanded on this because, it was put in place thinking that the political parties or whomever would come in and say, hey, we want to put our political signs up, and it was up to this board to say yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Although we never got anyone that did that prior to last election cycle. Legal advice is your UDO is perfect because it says no signs whatsoever. Now, how it's enforced And you can say the same thing about driving around 465 and how many cars are.
But actually, that's the problem. If other signs are put up, then even if you're not enforcing that law, that UDO for other signs, then it does appear to be discrimination of freedom of speech when you do so for political signs.
Well, and that's what we tried to push is we want it to be all signs. The state of Indiana, NDOT is extremely good at making sure that there's no signs in areas.
So here's the question I would have, again, following the spirit of that law. Since the signs were put in very limited areas, what would be the objection? And we've always been good about this. When I say we, all the political parties, what would be the objection to allowing those? And we know that people are putting up other signs as well. And that hasn't stopped. That's happening. I'm sure every one of us can go every couple of weeks and we'll see signs in those same little areas. Since they had not hurt anyone and we were very responsible, all the parties, all the candidates, my question is, why stop something that's been a multi-decade tradition that has been a good way for people to share and express their political beliefs?
And like I said, the intent, or my intent was, that's what was going to happen, was we were going to be asked, and then legal counsel again said, you can't do it for a specific political sign. If we want to allow a sign, we have to allow all signs. Now, Councilman Stanley has come up with some outside of the box datings and time frames and everything like that, which I think our planning commission wants to review and look at that. Another living, breathing.
And I would encourage anything, again, I'm here to speak for those who oftentimes are, out there working and campaigning. I would encourage absolutely looking at any changes, going through the proper procedures. I'm not coming here today saying everyone has to make a decision today. But what I am saying is, I would ask all of you to please consider that, this is a fundamental right. And I think it goes very well with Councilman Williams' statement about being a sanctuary for the First Amendment and the Second Amendment as well, but in this case we're talking about the First Amendment.
Dave Moore, have you collected signs not belonging to political parties? And
we collected signs from various different businesses, political parties.
as a percentage, do you think that the signs that you currently have collected at the government center, or at the street garage, are more than various signs or political?
Well, they're more various signs than political signs.
Yeah, so the statement that they have not collected all kinds of signs is false. And I've seen the signs myself, so that's false. I want that on the record. You made the statement that only political signs were targeted, or...
Oh, no. What I was referring to is that...
show what you said versus what I said.
Well, again, Mr. Williams, we are not trying to have a debate here. I'm trying to support you in your idea of protecting the First
Debate. You made a statement, I disagree with it. So.
Well, then let me clarify my statement so that we are clear here. What I'm referring to is the idea that freedom of speech in political signs is a standard that if you're not going to have any signs, that's a choice. You can say no sign. We will allow none.
That's what the UDO says.
And that's fine.
People put them out, and sometimes, you have to go through a process. We have a process. I think the attorney helped install a sticker program. Is that correct, Beth?
And again,
to give notice, there's a process.
Again, you had restated that you want to make Mooresville a sanctuary city for the First Amendment. And what I'm saying to you is the spirit of that would allow political candidates who have been doing it for many years and have been very responsible.
My campaign was told no in 2019, and none of
And so because your campaign was told no, you've decided you're going to have a war on all other political speech?
I followed the law because I did what the state recommended. talks about political signs. You're supposed to go, per the state's
And who did you speak
recommendation, you go to the property owner, so you go to the
And who
municipality.
did you speak to the town council president?
I would really prefer that this debate stop. If the two of you would like to do this when you're not on the record in a public hearing, then that you certainly have that prerogative.
I will
But as
respect that.
legal counsel, I would prefer that this not occur. I do have just one question for you, because I just want to make sure that I did hear you correctly. Are you saying to this board that there's a fundamental right to put a sign on government property?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because you're talking about, I think there's a difference between establishing the municipality as a First Amendment sanctuary generally and modifying the UDO. And I'm trying to decide what you're up here telling us, whether you believe that the town should adopt a First Amendment sanctuary resolution.
No.
Or you don't, you think the sign resolution should be.
What I'm saying is, in the spirit of that conversation, the spirit of, we want to allow, Mr. Williams wants the city to adopt some type of resolution, the town, to declare it a First Amendment sanctuary city. What I'm saying is that I agree with the idea that if we should adjust the UDO so that political speech can be shared as it has been in the past. It's only been the last couple of years that has actually been the case. And while it is, of course, the town's right to say there will be no signs.
And we're just talking about government right-of-ways. You do
Yes.
you're not up here saying that the town is prohibiting political signs on every piece of property.
No.
You're just talking specifically about right-of-ways.
Specifically,
I just
there's
want to make sure that.
absolutely. There's a couple of specific right-of-ways that have traditionally been used.
Right.
And so what I'm coming up here to say is that if it's at all within the town's will, the town council's will, and within the spirit of deciding, hey, we want to encourage the First Amendment, to say, how can we adjust these UDOs so that those things can happen? That is all.
Yeah, and any of these council members have the authority to introduce an ordinance
Of course.
to change that.
Of course.
It would first have to go to the plan commission.
No, of course,
It
of
would
course.
first have to go to the plan commission, but anybody has
And exactly, and that's all I'm saying. Of course, I'm not advocating for this has to be done this way. I am really just up here advocating to think about the spirit of this idea, and to also recognize that the political parties have actually been very responsible over the course of the years, and making sure that most people had that opportunity. Those that did not usually didn't go through the proper channels. If I had known, and I've told Mr. Williams this myself, if I had known that he'd had an issue, I would have gone to the proper channels, which would have been the town council.
I didn't have an issue. I followed the law willingly and happily because I don't think the public should have to advertise on this stuff. I don't.
Again, those are, again, we're in respect to council, I'm not going to try to debate Mr. Williams here. I'm simply trying to express my support of understanding that we as parties
Why am I the only one up here not allowed to debate?
I don't think anybody else is engaging him. I just don't want it.
Yeah, but you debated it.
But I'm
She
legal
is.
counsel.
I represent the people.
If you would like to in this forum, certainly.
You know what,
But my concern is that this has been such a hot
Yes.
button topic for over a year now in this town. I'm waiting for the lawsuit. It's going to happen by somebody at some point, regardless of what position that you take. And so I'm trying to minimize
I follow the law.
conversations up here. But no. I'm not discrediting that. I'm just trying to minimize the record.
And what I'm trying to do here, and actually in agreement with you, I don't want there to be a lawsuit either. I would like us to all think about and discuss and come together and find something that is a middle ground where people can feel comfortable, where no candidate would ever be turned away, but at the same time the opportunity to express, within reason. We don't want to put big signs that would block, right-of-ways and block views. We want to be able to respectfully do those things that we've done for decades. That is really all I'm asking, and to have that considered.
Daniel, thank you very much.
Thank you for your time.
Are we done on that topic? The next topic is the last redevelopment commission meeting, and man came in and asked about what's going to happen with the High Street trees, basically, the answer was blaming NDOT. But, you know, I think we should address that, find out what's going on before the project's complete. There is an 8-foot walking trail on one side that's in the purview of the redevelopment commission. But I'd like to know, I mean, we've got the president sitting here, I'd like to know whether trees are going in or not. I mean, if they're not, it doesn't match the rest of the gateway. Do you know the answer to that?
Sure. Sorry to interject. I've actually
that's
had about 50-50, both positive and negative. A lot of people were very, very negative. Some people are now saying, hey, it actually looks kind of nicer with the open view. We are piecemealing, so NDOT came in, as you know, and said, we are going to do this. We are not replacing this portion of the sidewalk. This portion will replace this one, and the 5th one, and the 7th, and maybe the 9th one. We said that, you know, instead of making it look ununiform, that we would go ahead and partner or fill in literally the holes that NDOT had created. So according to the email from NDOT on the north side of High Street, 7 trees were to be removed. 2 of those trees were at the property of northeast corner of Monroe Street. The remaining 5 trees between the curb and the sidewalk that need to be removed to make space for the shared use path. On the south side of High Street, 8 trees were removed. These trees are too close to where the new curb line needs to go in order to remain. The contractor had to remove a portion of the tree trunks near the ground line to make space for the construction of the new curb. It would not have been safe to keep such a severely damaged tree in place. On the north side, there will be a couple of feet of grass area between the new shared use path and the RW line, which there is not room to plant new trees. On the south side, it would not be desirable to plant new trees in the new grass strip. The grass strip is not an ideal location for trees since it blocks the blocks sight lines and causes future maintenance issues. That is from NDOT.
So there's going to be no trees?
Pretty much.
No ornamental trees? No nothing? That doesn't match the entire rest of the gateway that the commission put together with tree. There's so many trees in it.
I understand. You're talking about a redevelopment versus an NDOT project.
Well, the redevelopment had a role in this project. They're paying for High Path, right?
Yes, we are paying literally to kind of complete the project instead of leaving it as is.
Okay. I think people will miss trees. But I fought enough tonight, so. That's all I had on that.
Greg, do you have anything? That's it.
Vaccination, the max vaccination site that was scheduled has been canceled due to low interest and low sign-up that was put out today, so we will not have a max vaccination.
At the
Correct.
middle school? Well, maybe that's because everyone's got theirs done.
Yes.
The only thing that I have is received several emails in regards to lighting. I was able to speak to Dave Moore, and with council's permission, and Shane, I'm not trying to step on any toes or anything, but if you don't mind, I'd like to get involved with that and reach out to a couple of electrical companies. I know what Dave told me, and I agree 100%. Everything is being blamed on can't get anything because everything is being held up in a Crossways shipping barge somewhere in the Suez Canal, and I think this will be the excuse from here to long past I'm gone. But I just want to reach out, find out what we're waiting on, and then find out if there is another vendor that we can get them from. Sometimes businessmen only feel comfortable using a certain type or a certain brand, and that very well could be the case. I'm guilty of it at times, but if we can find something to make it work, it has been a year, and like I said, I'm not trying to step out of my lane, but sometimes 3 heads are better than 1. So,
What's wrong?
well, originally there was some design flaws and allowed electrical conduits to collect water and short outs and stuff. Part of it was repaired and seemed to be all right. So the next phase or the next batch of equipment was ordered. It has not come in. And I think if I'm right, there's a lift sitting down there waiting for parts, but we got to get the parts in. And I think we need to move forward and see if there's anything that we can do to expedite that part of it. Again, we ask vendors to do things for us, and we want to hold them to the grindstone. That's it. The next meeting day will be Tuesday, May 4th. Is that a fire alarm?
It is my daughter's medication reminder.
That's not a violation of any of the laws. Our next meeting date will be Tuesday, May 4th. You guys want to have it here?
Sure.
Okay. 6:30?
I'm wearing Star Wars stuff. Just
There you go. May the 4th. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion been made by a second. Motion made and seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Want this put in maintenance form to send it to my commission?
If you could.
Yeah.
Because I honestly, I'm just trying to make everybody happy.
Oh, I don't care one way or another. What do y'all do?
And I understand.
Yeah, I don't care what, I'm just tired of it coming up. When he said, being a sanct- oh, by the way, would you also like a resolution? This being a sanctuary town?
Yes.
Let me make it. For first, I've never seen first and second. They are, but.
No,
Yeah, I got a couple of ones.